On July 28, 2026, American F-22s and Saudi Eurofighter Typhoons ripped through the night sky over eastern Iraq, dropping munitions on multiple targets below. This joint bombing run marked the first time since the 1991 Gulf War that Saudi Arabia has openly participated in airstrikes inside Iraqi territory. The morning after the strikes, President Donald Trump went on national television and promised a harsh response to recent attacks, declaring that Iran was going to get a beating. Until this moment, Washington had been working toward a complete exit. Operation Inherent Resolve was winding down, and the working assumption across the military was that all remaining U.S. troops would leave Iraq by the end of 2026. But as a direct conflict ignited between the United States and Iran, those withdrawal plans collided with geography. With Iranian forces launching attacks through Iraqi airspace to hit U.S. and allied assets across the region, Iraq was dragged directly into the crossfire. This operation demonstrated that to contain Iran's regional influence, Washington and Riyadh are now willing to bypass Baghdad entirely and strike within the borders of a sovereign ally. The joint airstrikes targeted a heavily armed network known as the Popular Mobilization Forces, or PMF. Under Iraqi law, the PMF is an official branch of the state's security apparatus. They are on the government payroll and theoretically report directly to the Iraqi prime minister. On the ground, the reality is different. Dominant factions within the PMF, such as Harakat al-Nujaba and Kataib Hezbollah, effectively ignore Baghdad. Instead, they take their direct operational orders from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In the early months of the 2026 war, these proxy groups were responsible for more than 600 attempted attacks on U.S. citizens and military facilities in the region. This creates a complex geopolitical nightmare. To neutralize an Iranian proxy threat, the United States is forced to bomb the state-funded military forces of its own ally. What forced Saudi Arabia to abandon its defensive posture and join the offensive was a concentrated 72-hour window of aggression originating from inside Iraq. This chart tracks Iranian projectile launches in summer 2026. Looking at the 72-hour window before the strikes, we see a massive spike in IRGC-directed drone and missile launches. Over 30 drones targeted critical Saudi petroleum infrastructure, threatening the kingdom's core energy assets. Following the barrage, Riyadh invoked Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, claiming the legal right to self-defense against the militias launching from Iraqi soil. Iran's strategy of using Iraq as a launchpad backfired. Instead of isolating the United States, the proxy attacks pushed Saudi Arabia into an active combat coalition with Washington. The retaliation was swift. American and Saudi fighter aircraft entered Iraqi airspace simultaneously, coordinating precision strikes across the eastern half of the country. The operation targeted the PMF's logistical backbone, striking command centers and weapon storage sites from Baghdad to Kirkuk. The PMF reported the toll: extensive destruction of military hardware, dozens of fighters wounded, and at least 20 personnel killed. The strikes successfully degraded the militia's ability to launch further drone swarms in the short term, but they also ended the illusion that Iraq could remain a neutral sanctuary during a wider regional war. In Baghdad, Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi was trapped. He was forced to publicly condemn the United States and Saudi Arabia for violating Iraqi sovereignty, while remaining unable to control the Iranian proxies within his own borders. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. Al-Zaidi had to cancel a scheduled emergency trip to Riyadh, a meeting originally designed to secure the Saudi energy investments needed to rebuild the Iraqi economy. For Washington, this escalation carries a severe long-term risk. A cycle of militia attacks and American retaliations could permanently halt the U.S. withdrawal, potentially requiring a surge of American troops back into the country. But the rules of engagement have clearly changed. By conducting this joint strike, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia established that they will no longer wait for projectiles to cross into their airspace. They will bypass national borders to strike Iranian proxies at their source. This operation signals that the borders of a sovereign ally will no longer provide a shield for Iranian proxies. By striking state-funded units at their source, Washington and Riyadh have ensured that the battle for regional dominance will continue to be fought on Iraqi soil.